Hi, and welcome to this special edition of Dream Talks. I am super excited to have our first couple on Dream Talks, Brent and Alejandra Sagissor. I am super excited because we've gotten to vacation together several times. We've gotten to have dream labs at their house. We've spent a lot of time we traveled together. We've been in different places together. They are absolutely amazing. And so without further ado, let me bring my guests on board. Hey, guys.
Hi.
So we are excited to have you on. We obviously talk a lot about dreams. And the beautiful thing about Dream Talks is it's just kind of unscripted. We just kind of have a conversation. And so I want to describe you. I always like, how much do I say about a super wealthy, like unicorn level investor? Do we start out with where you're positioned on the Forbes list, or do we just talk about
speaking about that? Add some zeros, John.
We receive it.
That's right. So these guys are just one of my favorite couples. They have such an amazing story. And I met you, Brent. I think it was at a luncheon at a prophetic conference in Dallas in 2019. Is that right?
It was definitely the luncheon. I like food. And 2018.
One of those. A couple years back. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was 19. Yeah.
Cool. So I think it was the Sean Bowles Modern Prophetic Symposium. And then he had a luncheon with Bob and Chris. Bob. Yeah.
2019.
And then we met there. And I think I did. Did I do some dream interpretation after they had the main session? And then I interpreted a dream for you, I think, and that's how we met, right?
Yeah, they did a breakout and different people lined up, and you had a prophetic team there that was with you and that was going to later help at the conference with Sean's stuff. And it was just, had good impact and good connection with you. So we continued to talk, and then I saw you later at the conference, and one thing led to another.
Yeah, you introduced me to your lovely wife and then your kids, and then we decided to stay in touch. And I think the next time we talked, it was about a dream again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, you invited me to come down to Houston.
It was. We rented a beach house in Galveston, I think. Was that?
No,
you guys went overseas.
I had a dream. We were trying to figure out if we were going to go to Prague for a month.
That's right.
That was a big step for us. And then the dream was a confirmation that we should go. So we were like, well, here we go. So we were going to need someone to watch our house.
And you were transitioning, I think, from Florida. And so you were needing a place to stay for a little while. And so it worked out real good. You got to babysit the house. No dogs, but we just to make it exciting for you.
Yeah, we're going to Prague.
We're going to Prague.
Remember the dream that guided you to go to Prague?
Yeah.
Tell us that.
What was it? I remember it was a dream because I was, we had at that point, we had
3 kids young.
We had a 1-year-old, almost 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And I was like, there's no way we can just I couldn't even perceive just going through the flight from the US to Prague, much less stay a full month.
Yeah, it was a business symposium, political, prophetic kind of thing that I had done the year before. And it was very impactful. And I was like, oh, she needs to go through this. But what that means is not just go there, we have a nursing kid, so I can't just send mom out for a whole month. And I was like, okay, can we pull this off?
I think the dream was something about I had not done something, and there was some sort of opportunity, and I had regretted it in the dream. And I think it was just very small but very profound. And so when I woke up, I knew that it was that. It was like, I need to do it or I'm going to regret it, like really, really hard. So I was like, okay, here we go. Buy the tickets.
And it was just
Wow.
amazing when we did go. Just Grace followed the whole trip, and the kids were really fine, and they didn't have any problem with the different foods. They weren't picky. They loved this really old apartment flat,
staying in.
500-year-old building that
They still think it was
everything
the
was
best vacation
quirky.
ever.
Yeah, they talk about it. And
Wow.
Mia loved that we ate ice cream every day, gelato, and stuff like that.
What a memory, though, for the kids. I mean, traveling together, prophetic stuff, conference led by a dream to go there and to take the whole family with you. Like, you had your own Mission Impossible team with you, like to film the Prague scene. I mean, that's great. I love it.
Yep. Especially with, you look back with COVID and the travel restrictions and different things. It's like, wow, even being able to do that kind of stuff before, the world's changed and made it much more complex, to travel or do that. So really look back and value that. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Sometimes you need to kick in the
Well,
butt
and they can't wait to
to
go back. They've asked us several times, like, when are we going back to Prague?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that your kids are growing up with that as world travelers at their young ages. I mean, your kids are brilliant too. I love your kids. They're super smart and they're just a joy to spend time with. So you guys your whole family's a blast. How many do you have now? 16, 20?
We're stopping at 4.
Yeah.
Stopping at 4. All right. Was that a prophetic declaration or?
It really was. It really was when we were.
We were being engaged.
Yeah.
We were talking about like the important things and how many kids do you want and this and that. I was like, I had 2 kids, my brother and I, growing up. I'm like, I want 2. She's like, well,
I was like, I want 4.
I want 4. I want 2 boys, 2 girls.
Yeah. And that's what we have.
Yeah.
So she won.
She wins, yes.
You did get the 2 boys though, and you wanted 2 boys. So there you go.
Yeah.
So
I was
Wow.
like, we have to have the even numbers because they need to have alliances at certain times, so this and that. I had it all pre-planned.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
balance of the force.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Now, when you guys met and you guys started doing business like together as a couple right away, didn't you?
Yeah. So our first quote unquote date, it was not an official date. Brent wanted to take me out on a date, but I told him that I didn't want the, you put a different person for a date, you kind of look different and act different and everything. I was like, no, we're just going to go run errands. I have some errands to do. We can grab dinner and then, you can just hang out. And during dinner that night,
It got interesting.
I received a phone call. I was renting an apartment, a condo. I had it for rent. And so I received a call from this guy. Was he Indian or something?
Indian or Pakistani.
Pakistani, maybe Pakistan. And he had a very strong accent.
A cultural divergence of like, I can call at like 10 o'clock at night and ask to show your apartment. So obviously.
This was back in the days before, we would rent things online. So this was when you would place an ad on the green sheet and then you put your phone number in so they call. So I take the call and the guy's like, yeah, can I see it tonight? And I was like, tonight? He's like, yes, I'm ready tonight. And
I'm the maximizer. So I'm like, of course.
Yeah. So
this thing's
like,
been vacant for months. Let's get it done.
So, so we met with him. We, on the road, on the way there, because we were about 30 minutes away, we hand wrote a lease.
Oh, wow.
So we're like, well, just in case, we need to sign a lease and have we also had like a little application, I think, put together. And again, this was before you did all that online. And we went talk to him and everything. And so anyway, after that experience,
It was quite a date.
I think we were both like, okay, this is going to work.
So did you rent the guy the apartment or the condo?
So it didn't work out because he wanted to move in that night.
Yeah, it got even more like we're doing crazy things, but we're at least going to do a background check.
Showing it to you, but I'm not ready to and I was still living there. I had to pull all my stuff out, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
You were leaving town. Or
I was
something,
leaving
too.
town. It was like
The
the week
holidays.
before Christmas, and I was leaving town, and I was like, I don't have time to move. I'm sorry, you would have to wait until after Christmas. And he's like,
Yeah.
no, I must stay there tonight. And I was like,
Whoa.
Like I
sorry.
said, it was off.
Yeah.
It was an adventure.
But it was fun.
Wow. That's crazy. So after that, you guys, was it after you got married that you started doing the big real estate apartment projects?
It was shortly after. We tried a few different business ventures, and they weren't quite that great. And so then
So what did you try and fail at?
I am a slushy connoisseur. Actually, it's a frozen juice distribution to make it sound really important. It's
we tried that.
not all natural.
Slushy king of Houston, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tried chiropractic practice.
Mm-hmm.
Tried, oh my goodness.
Did you get your chiropractic degree online, Brent, or?
Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I just remember we were like, okay, let's slow down. Let's go back to square one. Let's talk about this. And
we started credit card processing with my brother. He still runs that one today, but it wasn't big enough for more than one person.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was telling Brent, I was like, my grandma in Mexico City, through all the different corruption and all the different economic, instability that there is, she always had money. And it's because she had apartments to rent. She actually built them. She bought a lot, and then, there's no bill zone and building codes and all that, So out of the lot, she built like 2 different rooms. She had 11 kids, I believe. So her and the 11 kids live in one room, and then she rented the other one. And then she built another room next to that, and then another room. Then she built upstairs, then upstairs. So she had like this 4-story little kind of building. But all through my dad's childhood and then even adulthood, even till now, that place is still there. It's been rented every time. It's never empty. And it's been a source of income, for my dad's family. And so we were talking about that, and I was like, I really feel like we have to go into real estate. And so we started looking into that, and, we started looking into buying. I think we started first with just single family houses. And then we decided let's just go big. So then we went with apartment complexes.
Wow.
Yeah. When we got to our second project, it was big enough. She quit her job. So I was already unemployed. So coming back from the Middle East and living off my sugar mama here. And, she had a good software programming job, and just sipping martinis on the beach poolside. But so we jumped into the apartments, and she quit her job, and we started working together, and it was an interesting ride after that. A lot of prophetic confirmation on our first project, and we knew we were in the right direction because of all the challenges.
Well, and even there was that prophetic word that was given to us that someone in my ancestry was good to the land. Somehow they had done right to the land, and that God was blessing us in land because of that. Like there was this ancestry blessing. So so we definitely felt it. There was a lot of grace for that.
Wow. That's really cool. So your family's from Mexico?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mexico City. Well, my parents were born and raised in Mexico City. I was born and raised in Mexico City. My grandparents came from like different states in Mexico.
Okay.
But they migrated to Mexico City.
So were you born here or there?
There. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. So I love the story of how your grandmother.
Yeah.
When did you immigrate to the U.S.?
So I initially came for college. I came on a full scholarship for college to do math and computer science. And then right around my senior year, my dad had been in the process of getting the green card. And so right around my senior year, I got my green card. And then I was shortly after hired by NASA here in Houston to come and work for the space shuttle program. So that's how.
Wow. Tech genius.
I like math and like computers. So
Yeah. Well, some of NASA's best women have been mathematicians, right?
that's
They
right.
made movies about people like you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So were you working at NASA when you met Brent?
I had just finished the project and I had transferred to a different company where I was doing software development for oil and gas.
Okay.
And Brent was working for a company that did oil and gas. So that's actually the thing that brought us together. We started talking about,
That's why she was renting her condo, as it was down by the NASA employment, and then she
I
had to
see.
move across town to this other one, so it was right during.
Yeah, I
the
was
transition.
commuting. I was commuting, and it was a long commute.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. So tell us about your first real estate project. What did that look like?
The very, very first one, the small one, or the first multifamily one?
Either one, you pick. Tell us a good real estate
It's more
story.
exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you talk.
Let's see. It was 6 units. I think it was an old hotel, like one that you see in the horror films, the single story.
No,
cinder
motel.
block. Motel. It's not hotel. Sorry, motel.
Gotcha.
Ones that you see in the population of 100 cities across Texas or something like that. The horror film, but yeah, it was cinder block. It had asphalt gravel roofs, and apparently at the end cap, which they converted it into a 2-bedroom apartment, but at the end cap it previously was a liquor store. So kind of tells you about the demographic. It was down in Lamarck, which is a very industrial town, refineries, close down by Galveston, but not glamorous at all. Very blue collar, just it was all bills paid and had paneling, and it was a foreclosure. Somebody from California bought it and went back to the bank, and this was back in 2008, 2007, something like that. It was December, I think December of 2008. So we were going through the mortgage meltdown crisis kind of. So it was a great time to get in real estate. It's difficult to finance things and that, but good purchase prices. So jumped into that. We were driving from almost Katy down to there. It was over an hour drive.
Over an hour. Yeah.
For 6 units, and
to collect rent.
Yeah, 2 of the 6 were occupied, and
it was one of those where it's hard to find hard to find the tenants. And so then Brent would just show up and start fixing one of the units that was it needed some maintenance and some TLC, and so he would just hang out there to see if he could find the tenants and start collecting rent.
Yeah, so did a little bit of rehab, got the units up and working, and rented them, and then all of a sudden, since we were down in that area, we found a 72-unit apartment with 50 storages about 3 months later, and had 2 other partners in that small unit, just because we knew we wanted to go big, and we didn't need partners in it, but we felt that we should take partners just so kind of get a track record of working together and stuff like that. So a couple guys from our church circles came together, and it was just they were like, oh, well, I guess this is like 12 times bigger, but it worked there. Let's do it again. And so that was our second project, and that was the one that she was able to quit her job and jump in as the office rent collecting lady, contract extravaganza, professional extraordinaire or something.
Translator,
contractor
manager.
Yeah. So that's the property we have all the good stories on.
Yeah.
The 6 unit, there's only so many tenants that you can have good stories, but the 72 one, there was nonstop reality footage for.
Oh my God.
We could have had our own YouTube channel. This
Yep.
was way before
Yep.
YouTube was a thing. But
We would be influencers in the apartment renovation world if we started that back then.
Wow.
So yeah,
Be on TikTok for sure.
it was.
It
We
was
didn't even need a
something.
TV for 2 years. It was so
yeah, we didn't
entertaining.
even miss it. It was
Just,
interesting.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Brave souls, but people that change the world and move markets, right?
That or stupid, one or the other.
No,
but we'll claim the
we
first.
we felt very strongly. We felt very strongly about the presence of the Holy Spirit through that project specifically, because it was very challenging. But we really felt it.
Yeah.
Like I remember one time we were changing the roofs, and it looked like there was a big storm coming, and I just felt strongly to pray against it. And I was like, no, and I was like, that's it. Clouds, you need to stop in the name of Jesus, because we're changing this roof today and we have to have dry roofs. And it stopped. The storm went away. There was times there were people dealing drugs in there, and we both felt very like this peace, but very strong authority to go and tell them, you need to get out of here. And we would go knock on the car. The guy would roll the windows. Like
big cloud roll out.
Yeah, and I mean, they were up to no good. They were waiting for someone to, come and buy their stuff, because they didn't live there, but we were a location. They were waiting for another vehicle to meet them there. Blah blah blah. And so we were like, we're the new managers. You need to leave. And there was just such peace and such an authority in our words, and they would be like, they would just take off, They didn't come back. And so, so we really felt like God was there.
Yeah, we forgot the detail. We actually lived at the property.
Yeah,
so
we lived
there. That was the
You forgot to mention that.
You forgot to mention that was the value proposition. Honey, you can make a third of what you make now. There's no benefits, absolutely no vacation. We go from like 10-hour days to 18-hour days, and we get to live in this 1960s property with no matching tile.
And with drug dealers.
Drug dealers, prostitution, the squat.
Roaches.
Oh yeah, the roaches were a
mold.
friend. Mold, everything.
Oh,
This thing had been
wow.
foreclosed for 3 years, and the bank owned it out of New York, and so it was a piece of work.
And it had made it through a hurricane.
Yeah, it had hurricane damage that they didn't repair previously. So we chose a gem. It was definitely A class.
It's
So
very
you said that after she married you, right? You didn't say that at the proposal. That wasn't part of the
No, that one we were already in deep.
We were both crazy.
Honey, leave NASA and move into the slums with me, and we'll tear them apart, rebuild them, and take over the world together.
Yep, that was it.
Give me a couple of years, and we'll take the kids to Prague. It'll all work out. Don't worry about it.
Well, there was times he had to just talk me out of there were times I was ready to leave, and he's like, no, it's gonna be okay. Trust me. Trust me. Yeah, give it a little time.
Oh,
so
that's amazing. So then you went on to do like really big real estate projects, and you've done a ton of those, right?
Yeah, we did several apartment complexes over 200 units. Like one was 250 units, and one was 262. It was only 22 units, but it was brand new construction that had went foreclosure. Developer didn't complete. That was a little bit north of downtown Houston. That one was a really fun project. Really enjoyed that. And
there were some luxury condos that were
they were
really
luxury
nice.
condo. Really high ceilings, amazing views, things like that. Different tenant class that was refreshing, that actually knew rules, could read, wanted to follow the rules, could understand contracts, things like that. And other projects, organic farm in Maryland. We have a dairy farm up there, and so that one partnered with some people, and God's just did some incredible things with a project like that, and just see the favor. And
then some commercial
projects
and things like that. So.
Cool.
All kinds of interesting stuff to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
Always a new different challenge.
Awesome. What was the first project you remember being guided by dreams specifically?
Um, I might have to go back. See, I didn't start writing down my dreams until about 2011. And so by then we had done a few projects.
Yeah. So what's interesting is Alejandra has the full motion video dreams, very detailed. I get like the 5-sentence dreams, probably because I can't remember them in the morning or whatever. But she started writing her dreams a lot, or she can recall like kind of a catalog a lot of times. Like I used to have a dream, and so she'll go back and reference a lot of those. But yeah, I mean, there's been prophetic words or dreams or different people that have spoken, or just even talking through or sensing different things. Not everything at night, obviously it kind of corresponds all together, the prophetic and stuff like that, but that we've just kind of tried to embrace probably almost since we were married. I mean, our church culture has always been where we've been in a spirit filled kind of tap into what God has, the Holy Spirit, and just kind of really, embrace that. So I think if anything, we were on the same page with that when we got married and just expecting it. That apartment that we were talking about, the first week we tried to find a church, didn't feel like this is the right one. The next week we went to another one. Yeah. And went to it, and we walked in and there was a guest prophetess there, and we got sat right in the front row as visitors and didn't know the church. And, at the end she points to us and she's like, "Hey, you two, come up here," and started delivering this really incredible prophetic word. So, I mean, God's been really faithful, and, the prophetic and dreams, and just even meeting people like yourself and stuff that, we can read books, we can read different things, listen to podcasts and, John Bolts, and just kind of get some familiarity with language and kind of expertise from these people like yourself. That's really been helpful to put context of just kind of fumbling through this or thinking, hey, does it mean this or does it mean that? Or, so
I think one of the earlier things I remember, I know you had the stock market. You were getting like dreams about the stock market and different purchases. For the apartments, I had a dream, but I didn't read it until, goodness, maybe 5 years later. We were having some materials going missing, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. So, 5 years later, I'm reviewing some of my dreams from that era, from that time. And I had a dream of who was stealing the materials.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, God was speaking all along. I just didn't, I didn't see it. And I need to go back and review my dreams more, because I think what happens is I just wake up in the morning, I type them real fast, and I move on, and I think to do a better job to like go back and review.
I think that's one thing that's been helpful, even like with you or with being married, or other people, when you start talking about dreams as a group. Sometimes she's like, "But you had a dream about that." I'm like, "I did," or, I'll tell her, I was like, "Remember that time you were telling me about that?" Or even you've told me. And so sometimes having that conversation, because again, 5 years later, that dream's not going to like, oh, this guy's stealing this stuff or whatever, but it gives you confidence that God is speaking to us. God is on our side. He is helping us with the little things, even if it's after the fact, with kind of confirmation. And I think that helps us, I guess, trust the process, even if we're not clear about the process.
And it's not like we have gotten it right. I think more often than not, it's been hindsight, like, oh, we had that dream. Why didn't we do anything about it? There was one time we were about to invest some money in some, that platform. Was that an oil platform or gas platform? Remember? And I had a dream that we were going to lose several $100,000 on that.
Yikes.
But, it was like, am I making it up? Is it because I'm scared? And so it was one of those like, what do we do? How much weight should I put in this dream? versus, in paper, everything sounds great. And so, so we went with in paper, everything sounds great. And sure enough, it wasn't as good as it sounded.
Mistakes were made.
But, it was one of those, like, well, how do you know? How do you know when you have the dream, is it what do people call it? Like a fear-driven dream, like a soul dream. Oh, well, your fears are kind of making this up, and therefore you're having this dream. Versus, is it really a warning from God? Especially when you're having an opportunity, because it was a very lucrative opportunity. It was going to make us, a lot more money, and and so that's the times when.
Yeah, there's things like that, and then there's others. And I shared with you previously about that, where it's a, I had a night vision and it was down to the pennies with like natural gas. And, with something like that, it's like, it's easy to act on, kind of. You still like, today, is it, as, you actually have to put money into it. And so it's a function of like, with a dream like that, I took action and actually made decent profit in a very short period of time. But you still have to buy something, because, if you don't, then you can look after it and say, oh, well, I guess God was telling me something and it made sense. And kumbaya, but it's like, well, what did we really accomplish with that other than, again, a confirmation that God's talking to us, which we've already established that that's the case.
Sure.
So it's stuff like that we've been successful with it, but then it's also been where, we fumbled the ball. And I think it's a constant, learning process and education of saying, hey, God, what are we working on? But I think it helps, again, in being in community.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about it.
Yeah, no, and that was definitely something that we were trying to decipher, because I forget what prompted me to start writing down my dreams back in 2011. But during that time, I was just having every single night. I would say probably from 2011 all the way to like about 2019, every single night, just dream. And I was like, what is going on? Some of them like just, very chaotic. Some of them, were fun. Some of them were like scary, and so it's like, okay, we were asking, I think we were asking one of his relatives who's, kind of an elder, spiritually wise. And it's like, what do we do with all this, like, especially with the scary dreams, like, and, at that point he had, given us advice like, oh, it's just some stuff she needs to deal with, in her, I guess in my spirit or my soul or whatever that I needed to deal with, because it was obviously showing, through my dreams. And so we had been, really just wondering, how do we handle all these dreams? How, what do they mean? And so it's been a process. It's been a process, but it's definitely been.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like the natural gas dream that I had that I invested on, that was very clear. The dream, it started where this was, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of the week. And
that's the hurricane story, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Tell us that. That's amazing. I love this story.
Yeah. So like with that one, I had been, I believe God talks to us and does things that we are actually able to act on, and so I was looking at trading natural gas. And so something that I was doing, in the markets. But it's also one of those things that, commodities go up, commodities go down. It's volatile. You can easily lose money. And so it was kind of in the early stages of like trying to, I guess, refine that skill and things like that. But I had a very, very vivid dream, and I had texted it the next day to my real estate partner, because it was so clear. It was so like, I don't know, like high definition, it's like profound. I just could feel the weightiness of it. And so I felt compelled to act, but it was basically the instrument I was using. It was an ETF that was leveraged in the natural gas like 3 times. And it was, this is the price. And when I woke up, it was right around the price that instrument's trading at right now. So, it's kind of like, it's one thing, hey, buy Microsoft stock, and it's, you dream $100 and you start and you're like, Microsoft stock's $40, it's a mismatch. But here it was just like, no, this is very close, within a few cents of where it's trading right now to buy. And then there was a very clear down to the penny sell point. And I think if I remember, the buy point was like 250, 255, and the sell point was like 293 or something like that. So it was very specific dollar and cents. And so I'm like, well, okay, I will put money on this, again, thinking that, hey, it made sense. So what did it? I think it was, like I said, Wednesday. The natural gas inventory reports come out on Thursday, and then the Friday. So I buy it sometime Wednesday or maybe Thursday morning after kind of thinking about it, and then all of a sudden, like a Friday comes along and a hurricane's coming into the Gulf, and when the hurricane comes in, the production shuts down. Energy prices spike because they think there's going to be supply disruptions, all this stuff, and it just spikes up. And so it spiked up to that price within, a day. And, that was like a 10% plus percent move. And I was using a leveraged instrument. So you're getting a 30% move, because it was a 3 times. But then what was not in my dream, and it kind of made sense. And I think Alejandra was kind of pointing this out, that sometimes you get certain things in your dream, but then you have to still, does it align with God's peace, or, kind of the other prophetic words, or, good counsel or things like that. And so this part wasn't in my dream. It was just buy and sell. And I was like, well, if that was accurate, I made money. Why would God have me sell if this is going to go to 250 or to 350 or $4 or $5? Like, I mean, how high is this going to go? And so I just naturally thought, well, if I'm selling it, I may as well short this. And so not just I sell it, then I decided to short sell it. And I used a leveraged instrument again 3 times. And what happened, Monday comes around, and over the weekend, the hurricane diverted to Alabama or Florida or something, missed the Gulf completely. And then, of course, there was no shutdowns. There was no supply interruption. And just the price just fell back to the 250 range and below. And so it was like a double bonus. You ride the way up and you ride the way down. And so it was really neat. And at the same time, there was a program at church. They were trying to raise some money for some sort of benevolence or fund or whatever. And it was kind of made a deal with God as well. God likes these deals. God, please, if you only do. No. But I was like, God, I'd like to give to this, or I'd like to do that. What kind of increase can I have from the market this week? And it was kind of one of these things before that dream. And I don't know if it's correlated, but I like to think God has a sense of humor, and he interacts with us in, kind of interesting ways. And,
Sure.
So I think, like, hey, let's go buy a new car now with this money or whatever. It's like, okay, let's actually have a purpose that he wanted to resource something on this earth. He has the tools in heaven, and he's communicated. I mean, obviously Sean Boltz has a great book, The Keys to Heaven's Economy, where he's talking about tools, resources in heaven. And, we believe that. We believe that there's resources to be unlocked, and inventions and different things that somehow, God can create money out of thin air, or just show up in the fish's mouth. But more than likely, we're going to have to use our hands, our minds, our tools, our experience, and he can give us guidance through prophetic or dreams, visions, things like that. So, ended up acting on that. And again, it was kind of a testimony to, okay, yeah, this does work, or we can figure it out. Now that obviously helps. It's very literal. I still have to figure out timing, and it helped that the timing kind of matched the price point. So I just took action on it. But you can miss the timing too, and it not go anywhere, or lose money. So it's still a walk, I guess.
So you made 30% on the way up and 30% on the way down.
Yeah.
How big did you bet on that?
I trying to remember. I put a decent sized position in, but I don't know.
He always says, I should have gone bigger.
Yeah.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, made 5 figures, I believe, or close to that.
Nice.
And so I mean, it was a decent amount. Like, and sometimes this is to my detriment. It doesn't always work this way. She's like, well, why don't you just start when you're not sure about these things? Start a little smaller instead of all in. Here's the chips. But yeah, it's. I'm like, well, I'm not getting these streams every night. If I was, then we would go with a little bit less, but or more. But yeah, it's just again, it's a kind of the learning process to get closer to God and how He speaks to you in your life. And she gets dreams to a different level, and I'm stupider, so I need these clear visions. This price, buy, sell. She gets all these abstract ones and everything, and she can decode all the symbols and stuff. I get some of those, but not quite the same. But I like the ones that are simple because I need simple instructions, right?
Right. Us guys do sometimes. Well, talking about missing it a little bit. Let's talk about that 10% NASDAQ dream. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm. I put some money on that one and I missed it.
Yeah. Well, and you actually sent that to me, and I interpreted it. And the way that I interpreted, the way that we talked about it, well, tell us that dream if you remember it. If not, I can pull it up. Do you remember?
I remember parts of it, but maybe it's better if you.
All right. Yeah, it was pretty basic dream. Here it is. Okay, so I mean, it's quite likely it was a dream. I don't know. You thought it might be a vision. One, the NASDAQ was down 10%. That was one concept. The other one was either 5 or 6 communion cups, like disposable plastic ones, and they were empty, like they had been used. And it was just those two things.
Yeah. A lot of times with my dreams, and I don't know if it's how I recall them or what, but I get like fragments or concepts, and sometimes I don't know if they're different scenes, but that's what that would have been. Is I had kind of either one scene was that and the second scene was that, or it was fragments of that. But yeah, and I mean, people that invest in the market, I mean, they realize 10%, that's a massive move.
Yeah.
But this was also during COVID.
March 20th of 2020.
Yeah, COVID had just started unraveling the markets. And so seeing a 10% move at that time wouldn't have been crazy to think. It would have been I think it was moving 5-6% a day. So that could have been crazy, but
certainly within the realm of possibility.
Exactly.
So I think the actionable intelligence, now we got this whole write-up about time frame. And in particular, we were like, well, how long is this, and what's going to happen, and what's it going to look like? And it was interesting because when you get a number in a dream, and especially if you're thinking of an economic dream, what bears in mind is Joseph in the Bible, right? And so you think of like seven cows, 7 fat cows, 7 gaunt cows, 7 fat grain, 7 skinny grain. And you're like, well, that was 7 years. Well, how do you know if the number is days, weeks, years, or months? You asked me that question. Well, how long is this? Because there were 5 empty communion cups. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I immediately thought of was, or it's just the Lord brought it to my mind, was the cupbearer and the baker. And it was really cool as I began to unpack that. And I'm like, well, the baker makes the bread, the cupbearer makes the wine, the bread and wine. These are communion cups. It's got to be 5 days. Mm. So, and I remember we kept going back and forth. You're like, 5 weeks might be actually a little bit more practical. And no, I'm pretty sure, Brent, it's 5 days. And so we went back and forth on this. And here's the actionable intelligence that I said. I said, please note, with regard to financial markets and positions, we are not giving advice, but are merely stating what we discern to be the interpretation of this night vision. We strongly recommend that you seek the Lord on any financial moves that you should make. All risk and responsibility are yours and yours alone.
Disclaimer.
This disclaimer, right? So I said there were multiple ways to take advantage of this intelligence. Ask the Lord what is right for you and your family, what he puts in your heart. But we strongly feel about this report, and we wanted to put this information in your hands. We believe there will be a sudden drop of 10% in the NASDAQ within 5 to 6 days, which would be by March 25th to 26th. And we believe it will happen in 1 day. Be encouraged through scriptural precedents and expect God to speak to you and to others during and through this vision and dream with intelligence that is actionable and resources and to provide provision for you and your families. And then we recommended even taking communion as part of this and celebrating his goodness and provisions in your life, and eat ice cream.
Yes.
Which was the celebration. We thought NASDAQ, like DAQ, were like Dairy Queen. So you got to eat ice cream as part of the intelligence of this dream.
So that was a joke. That's why it didn't work, as I didn't have my ice cream.
You didn't eat your ice cream. That's what it was. So what happened? You put a chunk down, and how did it work out?
So like something like that, what I was struggling with is 10% in the natural. Like if we go back to human logic, just like the natural gas dream of like, okay, it increases. Well, this is the sell point. I'm using human logic to say I'm going to short this because why else would I be selling it? God only wants me to get X increase instead of Y. It's much bigger, so that's human logic. And I could have missed that one too. It made perfect sense to me. So I acted on it that way. Mm-hmm. This one, the human logic tells me, I don't know how many times the NASDAQ has ever dropped 10% or if it ever has. I know back, I think in 87, the Dow Black Monday or whatever that massive trigger was, there was a massive drop. So probably that day might have happened. I think if the NASDAQ was around at that time, but anyway, not to digress. So, the natural is like 10%. Is this real? And so then my second thing goes, well, is 10% still can be a move, and it can be a 3% day, a 5% day, a 2% day. 3 plus 5 plus 2 is 10%, or, over 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, stuff like that. So, and that's happened many times when the bear markets come, that a series of down days, and any of that stuff can be actionable. I've talked to you about this many times, is it's really back to timing, but if you can time the markets better, like if I know it's going to happen within 5 days, I can do some super leverage and low cost. And if you miss it, the downside's wrong. If you don't know if it's going to happen over 5 weeks or 5 months or 5 years, you can get on the wrong side of the market. So it really depends on kind of risk and reward. You can lose more, or you can make more if you can get the timing more precise, or you can just totally miss it and, not get anything if you got the timing wrong. So that's what I was trying to reconcile with. But I did take a position. I think I took a position for 5 days for that, and it didn't pan out in 5 days. And so then my next theory was, well, I guess maybe it's, 5 weeks, so I took another position for the 5 week thing, and that didn't pan out. And then I think it was you or someone else I asked, they're like, well, how often do you have communion at church? And we're like, well, once a month usually is kind of the frequency at our church. It's not weekly. Growing up, I think it was every other week in the church I grew up with, so they were like, well, maybe it's 5 months. And so I don't know if I took a third position or I was like, whatever, but I chalked that one up to God. I'm willing to try this. I can lose money. I can look stupid. I can, it's not my money. I guess if I'm poor on the street, heaven's still there. Or if we're in the mansions and we're wealthy and we're funding different things, it's ultimately we're just stewards. And so I'm trying not to be stupid, but I'm also trying to, as an act of faith, to act on some of this stuff with reasonable I guess, sound counsel, advisory, so that's kind of where, back to some dreams that Alejandra's had about preparation and training. I think if anything, probably our brightest and greatest days are ahead of us, despite, what COVID looks like, or business challenges, or day-to-day family issues, or, whatever it is. It's just training grounds here. So, I kind of chalk these things up to training grounds of, what we're doing, and hopefully we keep refining it when we do miss it. So,
Well, it's interesting because I I briefed my team on this dream, and I briefed it as like a post-mortem lesson learned. And we have a guy that works with me that we call him the General. He's a former Special Forces general, 30 years, the commander of Special Forces, Korea, Green Beret, and a rocket scientist. So you guys would love this guy. He lives in Florida. But so he's a little bit of a number cruncher too. And so he sent me this email after we briefed this in class. And he said, what if you went in the wrong direction, but you had the right time frame? What if the NASDAQ was down and your starting position is low, so the future position is up? What if the dream is saying that it rose instead of dropped? Well, I thought this was really interesting, because if we go back to the original language that you wrote down in your dream, first of all, they were empty communion cups. And you specifically said the NASDAQ was down 10%. That was the concept. Now, I called the dream a 10% NASDAQ adjustment, but my whole premise was the NASDAQ was going to drop. But that's not what you said. You said the NASDAQ was down 10%.
John, that makes a lot of sense, because I remember it reversed heavily. We were almost at a bottom very shortly after that. And that was part of this learning lesson is, I was shorting, and then it was going the opposite direction, causing pain.
Well, so check this out. The NASDAQ position on 320 of 20 when it closed was 68.79. 68.79 was the NASDAQ position the day that you had the dream. So there it is. It's probably a little hard to see. Okay. But on 320, it was 68.79. And the NASDAQ at close on 325 was 76.71. Okay, so here's 320. And then here's 325.
Yep.
So what's interesting is a 10% rise from 68.79 is 75.66, but it closed at 76.71, which is actually 11.1% higher, 111. So it actually did rise 10%.
Go back to that. What's interesting about that, you said I had 320. Was that the dream?
320.
So you look at the next day of 321, the one bar over.
Right.
So it's basically flatlined. And that's what I saw with the natural gas is I took direction the next day. Because that's the thing that I have. You jump in multiple bars, but like the one bar that's next to, you see that the volume goes sideways.
Yeah.
Not volume, the price.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I'm like, well, if God gives you something and you can't act on it, there's a problem. What's the reason? Or if we delay. And what I did with that natural gas one is I took action the next day. One, because the price was right around that. Now, so that one would have been, if I would have taken action that next day, even throughout the day, any point during the day, it looks like it went sideways and it closed about the same price. And then the next day after that, it went up. Right. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I've been waiting to interview you to be able to share that with you. Because I was just like, you heard exactly right. The NASDAQ was down 10%. and the communion cups were empty. So it was the idea, not that it was going to drop, but that they were already dropping, and what we were observing was a rise. It's interesting. We call the dream the 10% NASDAQ adjustment, but the dream proved true. And I just love that this is, even right here on this conversation, this is the second story where it's been proven to be true. Like you said, then the very next day you invested, and like with the natural gas thing, 3 times leverage, 30% up on the way up, 30% on the way down. If you would have done something similar on a rebound on this one, you could have made certainly 30% on the way up at least.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's the easy. If you really have the defined, you could use options or other things and make multiple hundreds, if not thousands of percent. And that's what's really fascinating with this stuff. Not that God's our slot machine, despite him sending me into a casino one time, but
you got to tell that story now. Come on.
But it's one of these things that it's really fascinating with these dreams of, again, it's that process of understanding. I mean, this puts a new context, one of timing to act. If I have another one, I'll be thinking about buying that asset the next day instead of going, I wonder what I should do about whatever, because even, and we've talked about this before, it's good to be able to have contact of people that can talk to you quickly about this, because if I can't get a hold of somebody for a week and then they get back to me in a week and then whatever, and it's like, did the movement go, and so it's about some of this stuff. It takes actually quick action to actually make sense. So,
yeah. Wow. Well, that's fascinating. And what I love about it is even the times that, we miss it, we can go back and we can look, and God has proven to be true. The dream is proven to be correct. It was a dream from God. It certainly, it was something that we can see in the physical world happened exactly like we saw. Even if we misread it, it doesn't disprove the concept of dreams or the idea that God is speaking to you through them.
Well, if you go back to that NASDAQ chart, I mean, what's fascinating about that is you look at March to April, less than a month, the adjustment could be a 10% rebound back up. But then on the same side, who says you have to sell that? I mean, we're back at like another 15-20% within another 2 weeks there to 85. I mean, that's what's interesting about that. Like with that dream, you could have gotten 10%, but you could have even gotten 20 or 25. I mean, that was really the bottom, and it just kept going. I mean, there was a little pullback there, but that's where I think what's fascinating about just the timing of entries. So, yeah.
Well, we've had some adventures together. I remember the property you were looking at in Chicago, and you had a couple of dreams on that, including some dreams about your first car, and that was really cool. But recently you had a dream, and I think it was about the ranch. I think you were in a real estate deal. It might have been something else, but you called me and you had a dream about you were at like a BW3s or a bar restaurant with several of your friends. Do you remember that dream? Can you tell us that one?
Yeah. So one thing about, just kind of for the viewers, again, we're trying to learn this process. So what's funny is, building our relationship with John has been fun because we invest in that relationship, not just time, money, hanging out, but one of the early things, and I think this was a few weeks after meeting you, so you don't really know me. I don't really know you. And I was, we're again trying to push into the prophetic, but we were looking at this property. We have a gymnastics and dance facility here in town, and we were looking at a second location that was 5 times larger, and it was this amazing real estate deal I found on the internet, and it was up in Chicago. And I'm like, wow, this is a big commitment. The price point looks good, but I mean, there's a lot. My partner was originally from Chicago, and so he had family up there and stuff, but it was like, this thing's 5 times as big and out of town, but a good price, but God, are you really wanting us to do something with this? And so, that's when I called you and said, hey, you want to come along on a adventure, and do some consulting and just see if you sense anything, or, not to act on an immediate dream, even though I had dreams, I think later after that. But I think even just acting on that to say, hey, John, you've actually seen the property, you've known the people, some of the people involved here. And now I'm having these dreams to be able to context it into you to say, hey, what do you think about this? But I mean, God spoke a lot during that project, and ultimately we didn't do that project. And it was probably really good that we didn't do the project, because COVID out of nowhere hit, and that would have been just an incredible project that we would have been coming out of a renovation, millions of dollars in this project, expecting thousands of kids to come into that building. And then
that summer,
Chicago, like these other big cities that are not in Texas, are very restrictive and locked down. And I mean, it would just been a financial mess and a burden on just everybody. So, just keeping us out of some of this stuff. I mean, we're always looking for the goes. Let's do this and that. But some of it's the no's too. But, really valued your time. And then because you came, I can't remember the other guy that you met at the Prophetic conference. He came along because you had interpreted some dreams for him. And so and then he's like, I don't know, I'm kind of new at this, but here's a prophetic sensing I got. And that turned into really good. So it was like you coming along with dreams, and then this other guy, and just kind of, again, embracing God. What do you want to do about a project like this? So that was just a really great, I guess, getting to know you more, and then just also kind of an adventure with God. So anyway, throwing that together.
That was fun. That was like one of my first spiritual intelligence ops. Yeah. Like it was like, hey, get on a plane. I'll fly out to Chicago. Just, we'll be out there for the day. And I want to get, and I'm thinking, well, I got a background in real estate. I've owned a finance company. You're like, no, don't need any of that. I got people for that. I want you just for spiritual intelligence. Here's 2 dreams. You had the one about the crawfish man. Remember that?
Yeah.
And the car that you grew up, or that I think it was your first car. And then you had another one about, some conflict there and some interesting stuff. And like you said, then we did a trip and we kind of discerned some things, and you ended up not buying that building. But I just love how you have such a heart in the midst of, you and your wife both, in the midst of all of the success that you guys have had in business and investing and doing all that, is you just still are so humble and so able to just lean on the Lord and say, would you show us, give us a vision, give us a dream? Can we reach out to somebody that, might have some wisdom in the prophetic side? And he's guided you and proven to be faithful in your lives in the midst of all that. And so I think you were looking at a property recently, and this was, I think it was last year. And you called me and you were talking to me about, you remember you were at the table, and the dream was about exposure, and you were at the table like a bar. This is a fun dream. So it's not literal. You don't have to hide the kids, but maybe plug their ears for a minute. But tell us that dream.
I was going to say, I remember parts of it again. Probably blacked it out on purpose, but yeah. I remember, let's see, I think it was half naked.
No, you're mooning people. No?
Was I mooning people?
Yeah, you were at a bar. You were at a table with.
I even blacked it out. I thought I was just half naked, but yeah.
This was a classic dream. I love the fact that you called me and you were so serious too. You're like, John, what does this dream mean? I'm at this bar with my friends. They're all at this table. I got all these guys there. And for some reason, I don't know what possessed us, we thought it would be a good idea to moon the whole restaurant. And so we all stood up and dropped our drawers, and it was like, what the heck? And I hurried up and I pulled my shorts back up, and the other guys didn't get theirs up in time, and the police show up.
Yeah, they got arrested. That's
and
right.
They got arrested, and they tried to look on the video camera to see if they could catch me with my stuff down, and they couldn't find it. Yep. And then the guys are throwing me the keys to their car, and they're saying, hey, take care of our cars for us because we're going to go to jail. And then the dream ends. And I was just like, I love this dream. I love this dream because people are always embarrassed by dreams like this. They never want to talk about them. They're just like, I don't know. I would never do that. And then they got to give you all these disclaimers. I'm a family man. I have kids. I could never see my, like, it's not literal. It's not literal. I said, and it's funny
I
because
wasn't worried about any of that.
I think you were. I think you were going through some of the disclaimers
at this point. No.
And I'm like, Brent, the dream's about exposure. And you're like, oh, obviously an investor term, right?
Yeah.
And so I just started getting these impressions. I'm like, the guys that you were at the table with are business people, right? You're like, yeah. I said, they're actually people that you're looking at possibly investing in a deal with, right? And you're like, yeah, they are. And I said, so it represents the idea of your exposure was limited, but their exposure was great. I said, I get the feeling that one of the guys there's like several different types of exposure. One is like overextended because of either like a bankruptcy or a marriage failure or something is happening. And so he has kind of his funds are kind of limited because of like a legal situation. And he's exposed on the legal side. And you're like, yep. And I said, and there's this other guy that I feel like his exposure has to do with like COVID. Like he's afraid of getting sick or he's been sick or you're like, yeah, there's this one investor that, John, the guy hasn't left his house in like a year. Like he's terrified of getting sick. And obviously it's hampered his ability to be able to do business. And I said, and so these guys in the dream, they were throwing you the keys to their car, which of course is their vehicle to destiny. And when we're talking in particular about investors, it represents the idea of their financial ability, their nest egg or their ability to invest, their portfolio. And I said, with these guys throwing the dreams or throwing the keys to you, I said, here's what this dream means. I said, I feel like this is a really big demarcation in your life as an investor, because initially, you guys started out kind of doing some stuff and, doing some projects on your own and then bringing in some family and friends and then doing bigger and bigger and more. But a lot of what you were doing is you would go do the due diligence on a project. And then you would call your friends and say, hey, do you want to invest? And then you got to show them all the due diligence and they got to buy in and they got to approve the deal. And I said, I feel like what God is saying is the next level for you is for you to become almost like a money manager or like a hedge fund manager. And the idea that these guys were throwing you their keys was the idea that they were trusting you with their portfolio. Not that you had to sit down and explain to them the benefits of the deal, but that they would say, Brent, we trust you. You make money. You have the wisdom of God. Take our money and go make money with it. You don't have to come back to us with every single project and get our buy-in. Just like go do your thing, handle our money and take care of it for us. And I also remember in this dream in particular, there was something about the number 10. And I told you that I felt like God was saying that he wanted you to think 10 times bigger than you're thinking now. So if you were thinking like 5 million, 10 million, he was thinking like 50 or 100 million. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I really began to encourage you that the point has shifted in your calling and your mantle, that you're not just a guy that does incredible due diligence, knows how to put deals together, knows how to invest, and can bring your family and friends in. But now's the time where you've earned the trust of people and they can say, here's my money, go do what you want with it. And I trust you without looking over your shoulder and verifying every piece of due diligence, and think 10 times bigger. And so this is when we started having the discussions of what would it look like if you went and raised 50 million or 100 million and you could invest it as in being a funds manager and you could make the calls on your own. And so I love this dream because it was such, and it was so interesting to me because being the good investor you are, you kept going back to, well, I understand that, John, but what about this property we're considering it buying? What do I do? And there's this problem with the title and there's this thing. And I said, Brent, the dream isn't about the property. The dream is about you. And what God is saying is, if you get involved with this deal, you will have success. Well, no, I know, I appreciate that. But what about, I'm like, Brent, it's not about problem solving. It's about you have the favor and the anointing of God on your life to jump into the next higher level. So if you buy this property, because you're involved, you will have the favor with the county, with the city, with the state to get all the different stuff that needs to be taken care of for this property to be successful. And I just remember, for me, it was big because it was a shift in the conversations. Whereas before it was like the NASDAQ dream. What do I do? Do I make this buy or not? The building. Do I buy this property in Chicago or not? The ranch. Do we do this deal or not? And this was like, now God is opening up a whole new area of favor, and he's calling you at this higher level to see the identity that he's now placed on you, which is it's a big jump from where you were before. And
yeah, I think it was not just that dream. Alejandra had a dream about the car with the gym and things like that. And when you were talking, you said that you brought back to that dream, and then you said these dreams are correlated together.
Yeah, you were talking to me about the dream with the cars. Here, take our cars. And then you said, wait a minute, my wife has had 2 dreams, and you just hand her the phone. And I love it because I know both of you so well. And it's just like, oh, hey, how are you? And you're like, yeah, she had this dream of like this incredible, amazing, super fast sports car. Do you know what kind of sports car it was?
I want to say it was like a souped up Charger. I think I would have to look back in my.
Yeah, I think
it was like behind the gym, right?
Oh, a Mustang, right?
It was like either a Mustang or Charger, something muscle
like that,
car.
But
it was a muscle
but it was
car.
like it looked really fast. Yeah.
And was it in the garage or behind the gym? I forget.
It was behind.
It was behind the gym.
Inside this, the gate, kind of just hidden in the back.
So hidden in a gate behind the gym, and the gym, of course, is one of the primary ongoing businesses that you guys own. Mm-hmm. And so what I saw was God was giving you the permission and saying, I've already given you the vehicle and the tools to go so much faster than you're going now, but you've got it kind of protected, asset protection kind of thing. You got it in the fenced in area behind the gym. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can see it. And it was like, no, it's one of those parable of the talent things. It's like, you need to take this puppy out and spread her, ride. Like she needs to go. And it was the whole idea of the vehicle to destiny, which in your life represents certainly what your business acumen, and particularly investing and making smart business moves. It's like you have the capability to go so much faster, which went right along with your word of stepping into a funds manager type thing, thinking 10 times higher than you were thinking before. And it's just so, I just so enjoy you guys, because Brent will have a dream. We'll talk about his dream. Alejandra will have a dream. We'll talk about hers. And they both mean the same thing. And God even uses the same symbol of cars to confirm through you guys as a married couple that he's speaking to you about your business and your portfolio. And of course, you've always been doing business together since you were married. And so, of course, he'll speak to both of you. That's so cool.
Celestia King. She's a Celestia Queen. She had to help clean those machines too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, gosh, I love hanging with you guys. You guys are such a joy. Your kids are just super incredible. They're going to change the world. And
well, it's mutual. We really enjoy talking with you and hanging out with you. It's always fun.
Well, thank you. I didn't know if you guys had any current dreams you wanted to talk about. If not, we could just sign off here. But if you did have anything that you wanted to discuss that's come up lately, we're happy to do that too.
Recent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good either, depending on time. She's had another one with a recent property. I had one with a gold mine. I mean, we're in the season of not a lot of dreams, and a lot of it, she's nursing a young kid, and so the sleep is getting far and few between.
Yeah.
For me as well. No, when she rolls over, wakes up, and he cries, but it's still a season that we're like, okay, God, what are you doing, and stuff like that. So that was just this last week, but I don't know if it's a shareable one or not, or
it's up to you.
You won. I mean, it's obviously, I think, an encouraging dream. I don't think it's that, what would be the word? Hard to interpret, I guess. This was over the weekend. I had a dream that some friends were leasing the very top floor of a high rise in downtown, and I don't know exactly where downtown, but it was gorgeous, it was luxurious, it was huge, very modern. So they were leasing the top, and these friends were in the ministry, and then they were subleasing or subletting different rooms of that. They kept calling it the penthouse, to different ministries for different classes. So we were there visiting to take a class and to talk to our friends. Outside, it had a really large balcony. I mean, huge balcony. And so we're talking, we go back and forth for different occasions. It's not like one location. So in our last visit, the friends that were running, that had leased the place, they say, you guys are in charge. They give us, they say, now from now on, you're in charge of this floor. And then they show us how in the balcony they had sown a lot of seeds, and there were seeds to different vegetables. So they showed me, like, this one has corn, and this one has maybe beets, and this one has, they have like different vegetables sown. And she said, all the sowing has been done. All you have to do is take care of them, and obviously reap the harvest. So we were left in charge of that, as well as left in charge of the different other rooms that they were subletting. I had been taking a class there, some sort of college class. And so I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get here? And I'm thinking of just the logistics of, okay, the parking lot's full. I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to park. It seems like it's going to be chaotic. I may have to take the bus. And then I'm trying to figure out the bus route. I'm trying to figure out how hard am I going to have to run from the building to grab the bus so the bus doesn't leave me when the bus stops by, and so forth. And then she goes, no, you don't have to do any of that. And she gives me this sports car, and she says, the penthouse comes with a sports car, and you have a reserved parking in the cover garage. And that was it. That was the end of the dream.
Wow. What do you get out of it?
So what's interesting is the mix of ministry and business. But at the same time, it's been something that we have, we feel somewhat called to raise a generation of Christians. We currently, in the church where we go, we have been involved with the youth, and we want to raise a generation of Christians that are business savvy, that want to do great business partnerships with God. And so I wonder if it's some of that, because, it's downtown, it's in the middle of, business, but somehow it was some sort of ministry floor, top house, the penthouse. So that's what's interesting. I don't know about the seeds. Obviously something they sown, but what exactly, in what context? And it comes with a vehicle and a reserved parking covered. And so I was like, oh yeah, we can totally do this. If I have reserved parking, I can totally come and park and be here and so forth. So
yeah. Well, it's a cool dream. You've done great on decoding it. There's a couple of insights that I have too. First of all, being downtown represents just the idea of being in the mix. Typically, a downtown area is where a whole lot of business typically is done. And so it's like the center of the marketplace. You think of downtown New York, or you think of Wall Street, or the financial district, or, different parts of Manhattan. But this was Houston, right?
I don't know for sure. I mean, the fact that I was going to have to commute home to there, probably, but it wasn't necessarily, explicit in the dream.
Yeah.
When she told me the dream the next morning, I felt it was Dubai for some reason. But
Dubai. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Well, of course, Dubai is a financial center as well. But Houston, obviously, with the significance of the oil and gas industry and all of that, you're talking about industry centers. You're not talking about Dubuque, Iowa, or something. You're not just some random city. It's a powerhouse city for, some of the top industries that run the world. And so being in a penthouse in the heart of the downtown area, the thing about elevation represents promotion. And obviously a penthouse is, the top floor, the top area of promotion, but it also represents the ability to see farther, which is like the prophetic gift. You think of like an eagle or being in an airplane, people on the top floor can see farther. And so I believe it means that there's an invitation and an opportunity for promotion, both wealth-wise, real estate-wise, but also in your prophetic and seer gifts. Because again, that's one of the things I love about you guys, is how the prophetic and the seer realm is such a quintessential part of the way that you do business. It's part of how you do business with God. The idea of ministry and business, I think, is incredible, because obviously when Jesus talks about the harvest is plenty, send workers into the field is talking about particularly the harvest of souls, the idea of ministry. And of course, Jesus also said, go and make disciples. So when you think about seeds that have already been planted, you think about startup companies that have made it through the seed round. And so to me, what it sounds like is an incubator, which again is the idea of, from a business and ministry standpoint, of discipling, right, and growing up businesses, which is something that's been on your guys' heart for a while. Mm-hmm. But the seeds have already been planted. You don't have to come up with the ideas. You may not even have to be part of the seed round, but you can certainly take an early stage or a startup stage company to the next level of their growth by pouring into the young entrepreneurs and growing them from this place of promotion, which means a higher place of prosperity for you, such as, say, having your own fund, and from a place of linking up with the prophetic, like we've talked about, spiritual intelligence even, and being able to see farther. It's in that place that you're able to grow a whole new generation. And it's interesting that you mentioned several things, but the things that I remember you saying about the seedlings is you said corn and you said beets. So beets are obviously super healthy, antioxidants and all that, but they grow to a deep foundation because they're a root plant. And corn, of course, is like a grain. It grows upward and then turns into ears. And then obviously it's something that has so many incredible uses that you can use. And so it's both a level of depth and a level of height that you're growing, which represents the idea of firm foundation in the people that you would be mentoring in business. And then, of course, the idea of the sports car to go with it is the idea of logistically you are completely provided for, because you were looking at, how do I catch the bus or the train or the cab, or what do I got to do to get around? And it's like, no, I got all of this covered. Here's a sports car. And so again, it's interesting. I think you guys need to get a sports car, because you guys keep having dreams about sports cars. You need like a Bugatti, or she needs like a convertible Bentley or something. Like, you guys need to step right into that. That might be a word from the Lord. With
the 4 booster seats,
4 booster seats in the back of a Bentley. Your kids are going to be going to first grade talking about their Bentley and vacations in Prague. People are going to be like, "Who are you?" My mom worked at NASA, and my dad owns half of Houston. It's going to be like, wow. But yeah, so the idea of the ability to go very fast, but not only do you have the ability to go very fast, you have your space and your position is secure. The idea of the parking space and the idea of a covered parking space. It means that you have position that is secured, a seat of authority, you have access, and you have a covering over you, which means you're not exposed at all. God is protecting you. He's made your calling, your election sure, your position, your housing, the ministry that you have through the incubator type accelerator model of raising the seedlings, which I believe represent, again, young entrepreneurs, which has been on your guys' heart for a while. And so what I believe this is this is an invitation to step into that. And a lot of this I know just through our hours of conversation late in the night after the kids are in bed has been about things like this, a combination of business and ministry, a combination of investing into the next generation, raising up like a Gideon's army of young entrepreneurs that, you know, can literally expand into the business world and make a huge impact, both business-wise and culturally, and for the kingdom as well.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's pretty cool.
Wow, that's an amazing dream. I love that dream. I think the actionable intelligence is to take the risk. When God says, hey, you know, here's when something comes into your life where it's the chance for more, don't worry about the logistics, because it's like, oh, you want a car? Well, the car's here too. Oh, yeah, you got a parking spot. Oh, you want a cover? Yeah, you got a covered light. Like all of the logistics were handled and the seeds were already planted. So it's the whole idea of, and it's the perfect illustration of a vineyard you did not plant and houses you did not build, and even a sports car you did not buy. You know, I mean, it's just all handed to you. And again, perfectly dovetails into the combination dream, the one that you had, Alejandra, about the Mustang, and the one that you had, Brent, about the exposure and them throwing the keys to you saying, hey, here's our cars, handle them. Like this is just, and that's again, one of the things that we teach on in dreams is dreams are an ongoing discussion. It's almost like a stream of consciousness, you with the Father. And one dream is like a sticky note. It's like pulling out a piece. But when you get to know people and become friends with them and you see how God talks to a couple like this, you know, you begin to see how God weaves the story of your life together. And you know things like, hey, buy the next day, because it's worked out at least 2 different times that we can prove and we can pull up. And the idea of the sports car, which means go fast. There's acceleration in your life in the area of wealth building, which is what God has called you guys to do. So encouraging. I love your journey. I love your story. I love you guys and your family. And like I said, it's just a joy to know you and to have you on the show this week. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And we're honored to know you as well, and appreciate your help over the years and guidance and mentoring. And I don't know.
You've become part of the family. Your Uncle John.
Yep.
Uncle
I
John.
already know you, and yeah. Just love that you're
Wow.
part of it.
Awesome. We need to get together again soon.
Absolutely.
Yep, sounds great.
Thanks for fitting me in between the kids in bed and the midnight feeding and everything else. And you guys are just amazing. So I won't keep you any longer, but it's been a joy. And like I said, we'll talk soon.
All right.
All
Have a
right.
great evening.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, such an absolutely amazing couple. I just love these guys. The way that they have their faith that's expressed through taking action in dreams and visions and prophetic words that God has given them, and the proof in their journey of how it works. If you're new to doing business through dreams, to hearing the voice of God, to taking a risk and even maybe investing or putting money into some of the things that God is telling you, you can let other people's lives speak into yours and be an example, because the Bible says the testimony of Jesus is the word of prophecy. So you can take the story that they have and you can say, God, what you do for one, you'll do for another. So if you have a question in business or in finance, do what we call a request for intelligence or an RFI. Ask God a question before you go to sleep and ask him to answer you in a dream. And who knows, you may be next on our Dream Talk show. Till next time, we'll see you then.